If you have been paying attention to the real estate and construction markets recently, you know the harsh reality. Building a custom home has become a staggeringly expensive endeavor. The cost of raw materials, the price of skilled labor, and the increasingly strict energy codes have pushed the traditional American dream of homeownership further and further out of reach for the average family. But what if I told you that the secret to building an affordable, custom, architecturally stunning home doesn't lie in discovering some brand new futuristic technology? What if the answer is actually hiding in the past? Right now, a quiet revolution is happening in the world of budget-conscious home building. Families, young couples, and retirees are abandoning the complex, multi-story, heavily air-conditioned floor plans of the last few decades. Instead, they are turning to a brilliant 200-year-old architectural layout known as the Dogtrot House. You might have seen them popping up on social media or in architectural magazines. They are instantly recognizable by their defining feature: two separate enclosed living spaces connected by one large continuous roof with a wide open-air breezeway running directly through the center of the home. Visually, they are stunning. They offer an incredible indoor-outdoor lifestyle. But today, we are not just going to talk about aesthetics. We are going to talk about dollars and cents. We are going to pop the hood on this historic design and break down the brutal math of home building. We are going to explore exactly why, step by step, the Dogtrot House is hands down the most efficient, cost-effective, and brilliant budget build available today. If you want a custom home without the crushing mortgage, grab a notepad. Let's dive in. To understand why a Dogtrot house is so incredibly affordable to build, you first have to understand the single most important metric in residential construction: the cost per square foot of conditioned space versus unconditioned space. When a builder gives you a quote, let's say $250 per square foot, they are usually talking about conditioned space. This is the fully finished interior of the home. It requires heavy insulation, perfectly hung drywall, expensive flooring, intricate electrical wiring, plumbing, and a massive HVAC system to keep it perfectly heated in the winter and cooled in the summer. Conditioned space is incredibly expensive to build. Unconditioned space, on the other hand, refers to areas covered by a roof but fully open to the outside air. Think of porches, carports, and most importantly for our topic, the central breezeway of a Dogtrot house. Building unconditioned space is cheap. You only need the foundation, the framing, and the roof. You completely eliminate the cost of drywall, heavy insulation, interior doors, climate control, and expensive finishes. Generally speaking, unconditioned space costs about 1/3 to 1/2 the price of conditioned space. Here is where the financial genius of the Dogtrot layout truly shines. Let's imagine you want a home that feels large and spacious. You want 2,000 square feet of living area to entertain guests, relax, and not feel cramped. If you build a traditional house, you are paying that premium top-tier price for all 2,000 square feet. Every single inch has to be insulated and air-conditioned. But if you build a Dogtrot house, you can manipulate this math in your favor. You might design a home with a total footprint of 2,000 square feet under the roof. However, you only enclose 1,400 square feet as your actual conditioned living space, perhaps 800 square feet for the kitchen and living room on one side, and 600 square feet for the bedrooms on the other. The remaining 600 square feet, that is your covered open-air breezeway in the middle. Psychologically, your brain registers the entire structure as a massive 2,000 square foot home. Because the roof continues seamlessly over the breezeway, and because you use that breezeway as your primary dining and lounging area for half the year, it feels huge. But you only paid the expensive construction costs for the 1,400 square feet of enclosed cabins. You have successfully hacked the system. You have achieved the footprint, the visual presence, and the livability of a large home while paying the construction costs of a much smaller one. This single concept is the foundation of the Dogtrot's affordability.
In the world of construction, complexity equals cash. Every time a wall jogs outward, every time a roof changes direction, and every time you add a custom architectural flourish, your labor costs multiply. Take a drive through a modern suburban development and look at the roofs. You will see what builders call valleys, the internal angles where two different roof slopes meet. You will see dormer windows poking out. You will see varying roof heights. Every single one of those complex joints requires careful engineering, custom-cut framing, specialized flashing to prevent water leaks, and hours of extra labor from the roofing crew. The traditional Dogtrot house completely eliminates this financial trap. At its absolute core, a Dogtrot house is essentially just a long rectangle, and covering that rectangle is the simplest, most fundamentally structurally sound roof in existence, the standard gable roof. It is just one single long peak running straight down the middle of the house, sloping evenly to the left and the right. Because the roofline is a simple, continuous straight line, construction is blazingly fast. Roof trusses can be pre-manufactured off-site, delivered on a flatbed truck, and lifted into place by a crane in a single afternoon. There are no complicated valleys to frame. There is no intricate flashing required. The roofing materials, whether you choose asphalt shingles or hyper-durable corrugated metal, can be laid down with incredible speed and zero material waste. This simplicity extends to the foundation as well. Pouring a concrete slab with a dozen different corners, bump outs, and bay windows is tedious and expensive. The forms take a long time to build. But pouring a massive rectangular slab, that is a concrete crew's dream. It is fast, efficient, and significantly cheaper. When you build a Dogtrot, you are not paying highly skilled carpenters to solve complex geometric puzzles on your dime. You are paying for rapid, efficient, straightforward assembly.
If you want to maximize your budget in today's housing market, you need to look very closely at modular and prefabricated construction. And quite frankly, there is no architectural layout on Earth better suited for the modular industry than the Dogtrot House. Let's look at how modular building works. Instead of a crew showing up to your muddy piece of land and trying to frame a house in the rain, your home is built inside a massive climate-controlled factory. The workers have all their tools permanently set up. Their materials stay completely dry. They work on an assembly line, producing homes with laser-guided precision and almost zero material waste. Because of this extreme efficiency, factory-built homes are significantly cheaper per square foot than traditional site-built homes. But there has always been a catch with modular homes: shipping. You cannot drive a sprawling, uniquely shaped mansion down the highway. Modular homes have to be built in long, rectangular boxes that fit on the back of a standard semi-truck. Do you see where this is going? The Dogtrot layout is literally designed as two separate rectangular boxes. It is a match made in architectural heaven. You can order one prefabricated module to serve as your living pavilion, containing your kitchen, living room, and a half bath. You can order a second prefabricated module to serve as your sleeping pavilion, containing 2 bedrooms and a full bathroom. These two fully finished modules are driven to your land and placed onto your foundation, perhaps 15 feet apart from each other. At that point, the only major construction required on site is for a local crew to build the simple gable roof spanning across the 2 modules, thereby creating the iconic central breezeway. You are getting the massive financial discounts of factory production, but because of the creative layout and the custom roof added at the end, the final product doesn't look like a cheap trailer. It looks like an expensive, custom-designed architectural masterpiece. For many people, the biggest barrier to building a home is securing a massive construction loan. Taking on $500,000 in debt is terrifying, and with interest rates fluctuating, the monthly payments can be crippling. The Dogtrot House offers a unique financial superpower: phased construction. Because the house is naturally divided into 2 separate pods, you don't actually have to build the entire house all at once. You can build it in stages, paying in cash as you save, completely bypassing the need for a massive high-interest mortgage. Let's look at how a young couple might execute this. In Phase 1, they buy the land and pour the full rectangular concrete foundation. However, they only build the structure for one side of the Dogtrot. Let's call it the primary cabin. It's a modest 800-square-foot studio layout, featuring a kitchen, a bathroom, and a living sleeping area. They built the roof to cover this cabin, and perhaps extended out just far enough to create a nice covered porch. Because they are only building a tiny house, they can afford to pay for it without a massive loan. They move in. They live entirely debt-free. A few years later, perhaps they are expecting a child or their income is increased. They have saved up more cash. Now they execute Phase 2. They build a second cabin on the empty side of the foundation. They connect the roof lines, creating the full central breezeway. The original cabin is converted entirely into the kitchen and living space, while the brand new cabin becomes the master suite and children's bedrooms. This phased approach is incredibly difficult to pull off with a traditional floor plan. You can't just build half of a suburban house and leave a wall missing. But the Dogtrot's fragmented design makes this financial strategy not just possible, but highly practical. It empowers you to grow your home precisely at the speed of your bank account.
So far, we have only talked about the upfront costs of building the house, but true affordability means a home is also cheap to operate and maintain over the next 30 years. And when it comes to monthly utility bills, the Dogtrot House is an absolute champion. The original Dogtrot cabins of the 19th century were invented for one specific reason: survival before the invention of air conditioning. In the sweltering heat of the American South, the central breezeway acted as a passive cooling machine. It works on a basic principle of fluid dynamics called the Venturi effect. The heavy roof provides deep shade over the breezeway, keeping the air inside it significantly cooler than the air sitting in the direct sun. As the hot air outside naturally rises, it creates a lower pressure zone. The cooler, denser air in the breezeway is sucked outward. At the same time, any prevailing winds are funneled into the wide opening of the breezeway, where the air is compressed and actually speeds up as it rushes through the corridor. By placing large windows and doors on the interior walls of your cabins, the walls facing the breezeway, you can open them up and let that high-velocity cooled air flow directly through your living room and bedrooms. In the modern era, this translates directly to massive financial savings. By utilizing this historic passive cooling technique, you can dramatically reduce your reliance on mechanical air conditioning. During the mild months of spring and autumn, and even into the early summer, you simply open the doors. Let the architecture do the work that an HVAC system would normally charge you for. Furthermore, because you are only heating and cooling the smaller enclosed square footage of the two cabins, the actual HVAC equipment you need to buy is much smaller. You don't need a massive 5-ton commercial-grade air conditioning unit. You can often perfectly control the climate of a Dogtrot house using highly efficient, relatively inexpensive mini-split systems installed in each individual room. You eliminate the massive cost of running complex ductwork through an attic, and you only pay to condition the exact rooms you are currently using.
If you want to take the affordability of the Dogtrot design and put it on steroids, you have to look at the fastest growing trend in modern construction, the Barndominium. A Barndominium, or post-frame building, uses thick wooden poles driven into the ground to support the roof, rather than traditional stick-framed walls resting on a concrete foundation. The exterior is wrapped entirely in sheet metal. This construction method is incredibly fast, brutally strong, and drastically cheaper per square foot than standard framing. When you combine the cheap structural shell of a metal Barndominium with the brilliant layout of a Dogtrot, you get what some builders are calling the Barndo-Trot. It is the ultimate budget build. You erect a massive, simple metal barn structure, but instead of enclosing the entire interior and spending a fortune on insulation and drywall, you leave the center 30% of the building completely open to the elements as your breezeway. You only frame out, insulate, and finish the two smaller enclosed spaces on either end. The metal exterior requires absolutely zero maintenance, no painting, no replacing rotting wood siding. The post-frame structure goes up in days, not months. And because the roof is supported entirely by the heavy wooden poles, none of the interior walls inside your living pavilions are load-bearing. This gives you complete freedom to design your floor plan however you want without needing expensive structural beams inside the house. For the budget-conscious homesteader, the DIY builder, or the family looking for maximum square footage for minimal investment, the metal Barndominium Dogtrot is the undisputed king of affordable housing in 2026.
At the end of the day, affordability isn't just about the numbers on a spreadsheet. It is about the return on your investment. It is about the quality of life you get for the dollars you spend. This is perhaps the most compelling argument for the Dogtrot House. It forces you to rethink what you actually need to be happy. In a traditional suburban home, we tend to overbuild. We build formal dining rooms we use twice a year. We build massive media rooms that sit empty. We build giant enclosed air-conditioned boxes, and then we sit inside them staring at screens, completely disconnected from the natural world outside. The Dogtrot House fundamentally changes how you interact with your environment. Because your actual conditioned living space is smaller, it costs less to build, less to furnish, and less to clean. It forces you to live intentionally, keeping only what matters. But it never feels small. That massive central breezeway becomes the true heart of the home. It is an outdoor living room, a dining hall, a playroom for the kids, and a shaded sanctuary. When it rains, you can sit in the breezeway with a cup of coffee, perfectly dry, listening to the water hit the metal roof and smelling the wet earth. When friends come over, the breezeway comfortably holds 20 people for a barbecue without anyone feeling crowded. You are getting a multi-million-dollar lifestyle, a deep daily connection to nature, fresh air, and open space for the cost of a modest entry-level home.